back, everybody. This is the SAGAS podcast. I'm Corbin, the Serpent Tongue Skipwith.
And this is Ren, the Berserker Marabou. Welcome.
I kind of realized I said the intro already.
I know. I thought you were trying to catch me out there, man. This is SAGAS.
Yes, this is SAGAS. I screwed up, my bad.
No, it was a lot slicker. I like that. Yeah.
Maybe we'll continue that.
Yeah.
So, first order of business before we continue, just thought, it's only right to say rest in peace to the Foo Fighters drummer, Taylor Hawkins. I was never a major fan of Foo Fighters, and I'm not going to pretend I was now. But, legends are legends in the business regardless. Just because I don't listen to them doesn't mean they didn't influence, or he didn't influence an era. He didn't influence tons of people and make tons of good music. So, yeah, rest in peace to him, and yeah, tragedy.
Yeah, I'll just say a little piece about Taylor. I was always a massive fan of Foo Fighters, but any man that can play drums in a band with Dave Grohl and not be overshone is an absolute legend. So it's very tragic and sad news. And I had only just watched the movie, The Studio 666, a couple of days before, and it was brilliant. And I was looking forward to making another one, but sure, such is life, brother.
Yeah, well, he's in a better place with tons of great musicians now.
Hanging out with Kurt Cobain, probably, hopefully.
Yeah, trading stories. That should be fun.
Yeah. Happy days.
Hey. Good. Well, today is a special day because it's the first episode that was pretty much sponsored by Zach Moonshine and Metal Devastation. He reached out and gave me this album, and I thought, why not help him out by doing an episode for one of his bands. So today we'll be covering the independent band Aztlan and their 2021 album, Revolution.
Sweet.
So, admittedly, I'll start by saying this. And at first, when I was given this, because in the messages that I was sent, Zach described this as folk metal, death metal. And I thought to myself, I was thinking folk like the traditional, like Irish, like kind of folk. And then to find out it was Spanish folk, which, look, I've been planning to say this for a week now. There is no kind of music that I would love more to sit in front of 24/7 than a Mexican elderly trio playing the Spanish guitar. I would sit there 24/7 and listen to that. That is the perfect music to relax to. But I was expecting a different kind of folk, so it caught me by surprise that it was Spanish folk, but this album was amazing nonetheless, and I'd like to get your opinions.
Yeah, well, I had no idea who these boys were, and you sent me the link. I'm after breaking something. Hang on. Sorry, right. So yeah, when I knew it was Zach that was throwing these boys at us, I knew it was going to be good. But I wasn't expecting this. And the more I delved into it, the more I was like, oh man, it was like layers. It was like an onion. The more layers you peeled, it just made more sense, But progressive, a lot of research I did this week on them, and it says like Mexican progressive metal folk. But yeah, the whole concept of this band is absolutely genius, I think. I'm pretty sure I've not heard it. I've heard all these elements separately, but I've never heard them put together. It's just really unique. It's like the mariachi band gone Evil Dead kind of thing. It's like they have all the Day of the Dead. It's very richly Where's my phone going again? Jeez, can't get a break this morning here. It's a really rich tapestry of a Mexican history, and in particular, this kind of element of the Day of the Dead, and it's I straight away, man, without getting into any detail, I liked it. The first, me with mixes. I'm all about me mixes, and I kind of was like, this is very strangely mixed. But when I listened through the whole album just to see, and all I could focus on was the mix side of it. And then the second time I relaxed on that and listened to the technical side, And on the third listen, I really got to absorb it all and just take it for what it is. And I was very much surprised that I enjoyed it so much. And I'm actually looking forward to this evening going back and listening to the older albums, because I think they're wicked cool, man. So that's my first kind of idea of it, you know?
Yeah. Look, to me, the one thought I had when I was, and I was just saying, I was just thinking, I think it's really good chemistry-wise that when it comes to listening to these albums, that I have a more, because I don't play instruments, I have a lot more vibe, aesthetic, just talking about the structure of the album approach, and you have like an actual music approach, like the mixing and the instruments, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool, especially for the listeners. I think obviously half of them will have your mindset and play instruments, and the other half will be like me, who doesn't know shit about instruments and just like talks about this. But the one thing I thought about most when I was listening to this album was like, and this is why it gives me chills thinking about it. And I was listening to it again before we went live, but the fact that just using an acoustic Spanish guitar, they were able to somehow sound just as powerful as a prog metal band. Like that is, to me, that's unbelievable, because that's an acoustic guitar. I mean, obviously there's some electric moments throughout the album, but mainly you hear that amazingly beautiful acoustic, and it's just like, how do they use that amazing simple instrument, and turn it into something so ginormous, so gargantuan to rival any of the best prog metal solos or prog metal guitar? It's just every time I replay it, I'm like, how the fuck are they doing this? And so just for that one thing alone, I give them props.
Yeah, I mean the nylon string acoustic is the classical. It's a straight away when you hear that instrument, you think about Hispanic, Spanish, Mexican music, you know, and they're at the very start of a lot of these songs, they really in a little bit with that, you know, bit of a plucking off a nylon string, and then all of a sudden there's this really for me it's a really unusual sound. The way it's mixed, they have the nylon strings right up the top of the mix, like bursting through the speaker high, like, you know. And then you've got the drums are just this really, I haven't really gotten a chance to really pick out how they managed to make these drums sound the way they did, but they have them right to the floor. A lot of bands nowadays, especially in progressive, they have the drums kind of brought right to the forefront, but they have them mixed right down to the bottom on most of the tracks. Some of the tracks, the snare gets a bit more time, but the snare's got absolutely no look in whatsoever, which I find is really unusual, because that usually kind of brings a song together, you know. It's like a glue. But so yeah, they have the drums down the bottom, then they've got this big overdriven bass, which I love, but it's so low in the mix you can barely even hear it. And where this band really kind of puts their emphasis is the percussion. So they have three percussionists, which I think is gnarly. Like, it's absolutely incredible. Like, no wonder the drummer gets pushed down in the mix. Like, I'm sure it's they all agree on it anyway. It's not like us where I'm mixing and don't listen to anybody else. But so there's three percussionists, and there's traditional percussion used in it. I think it's like pre-Hispanic instrumentation used in it, which is absolutely amazing. I think the guy that plays those instruments, his name is Nahal. Sorry, bro, if I'm pronouncing it completely wrong, but it's a wicked cool looking name when it's written down. But yeah, so that's the first thing musically that stands out. It's like they've got all these really big percussion instruments layered right on, like, center of the whole thing. And then there is nice distorted guitars, but again, that's down with the drum and the bass. So usually you would imagine that it would be slightly the other way around. And at first, like I said, it kind of took me by surprise, and I was a little bit hesitant to let myself enjoy it, because I'm too much of a bloody perfectionist when it comes to the mixes. But no, I did. I understood what they were doing after a few tracks, and I actually really like it. And I can just imagine the influence in my mixes from now on. Like, but yeah, man, like straight away, how badass do they look? You know, don't they look super cool?
Yeah. The album artwork's pretty cool as well, with the
Yeah,
black and white, like sketched like skeleton with a hat and
yeah,
riding a horse. But the one thing I really liked about this album, which I found really unique, like I don't know why it was in my head the whole time I was listening to it and replays, is the vocal minimalism. Like there isn't too much vocals, and it's just like it's. But see, some bands you listen to, like I don't really have an example on top of my head, but like some bands, they will carefully structure the minimalist vocal, and so like it sounds throughout the album. There's a purpose for the fewer words. You can hear the purpose, but in this, it's just pretty random. Like not a bad thing. I'm not hating on that. It's just like it's like to me, it just sounds like they just randomly. To me, it sounds like they did the production, they did the instrumentation, and then randomly they were going through revising and like, oh, this needs vocals. This needs vocals. But then again, it's all in Spanish. Maybe the words mean something powerful, and maybe it means something to the title. But yeah, to me, it's just really randomized, the songs that have vocals, the songs that don't. Why do some songs have more vocals than others? I found it pretty strange, and like definitely something I'm not used to as far as an album goes.
yeah. It's kind of like they have a lot of talking voices on the tracks as well, and I think it sounds to me like they might be clips or samples from like old Mexican movies, maybe. It could be the boys talking, but it kind of sounds like something like that, like from the Alamo movie or something like that. But yeah, I mean the whole premise of this band is it's a really lovely conceptual theme around the band, which I love in bands. Like obviously I do that with the Viking metal stuff, and whenever bands do that, if they do it right, you can really feel the passion from the music, and you can tell what these boys are doing. They have this image where they're trying to invoke this, traditional Day of the Dead kind of vibe. But as far as I could be wrong here, but I think the band name is like so it has something to do with the people of the Aztecs and the Mayans or something.
Yep.
I'm not 100%, but there's something like that anyway. Um, there's just lovely mysticism in those cultures and those kind of people. Um, but yeah, no, this album was a concept from like 1910. There was like the Mexican Revolution, and that's where the cover comes in, because the guy's on the he's got a skull, a sugar skull as I used to call them, but yeah, it's like a cavalera skull, I think is the real term for it. With a machete, and he's on a horse, and he's like with a sombrero, and he's going into battle. He's ready to take on his enemies. Like, so yeah, it's a kind of stripped back cover, but it's or album art, but it's very powerful as well. I love the whole mariachi thing. I've always loved that, and to see it done in, like you say, like powerful, kind of like, I don't know, just a bit more aggression almost in a mariachi band. Like, I think your man, speaking of Cavalera, I think the guy's vocals sounds very like Max Cavalera at times, but way more demonic, like way more demonic. Like I almost think like and the boys might get angry at me for this, but like something that Quentin Tarantino would have in a song. I think it's when the trumpets come in, because there's that Mexican sound trumpet. And what I mean by Mexican is that I think now I could be wrong here, but I have a trumpet here, and mine I play a lot in D flat. I'm breaking something else again here. I play in like a B flat, right? And these instruments, I think the Mexican guys go to E flat, so it's just a little bit higher, and it just gives you that lovely, like, I don't know, like just lovely high pitched trumpet sound. And they use that in very, very light amounts. They use this, but when they do use it, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's just like, um, it's magic. It really is magic. But the other cool thing is that they look like mariachi band kind of style, but they have the Day of the Dead masks, but then they have like the bullet belts over their shoulder, kind of crisscrossed, And I think like the main no, I said his name, but I think that's his real name. I think his character name, because they've kind of character names as well. The vocalist is El General. Then you've got a vocal guitarist. He's Attila. You've got Murcho is a guitar player. Katu is the bass player. Diablo is the drummer. I love that. Like the devil's on the drums. Like Jaguar does the ancient percussion. So that's who I was kind of talking about. But there's another guy called. I'm not even going to try to say his name, but it's yeah. I think I butchered enough of their names there. But yeah, they just have this, from the aesthetic to the story to the historical and ancestral links. It's just an overall kick-ass concept for a band, and I absolutely love it. And I've never seen anything like this before. But I think I might have deviated there. I was talking about Quentin Tarantino. There's one song that I think would be absolutely perfect for the Dusk Till Dawn scene, where they're in like the movie? Yeah, they're in this desert. What would you say? Like a desert bar, and there's like an evil vampire guy that's dressed like a mariachi dude. He starts playing. There's a guy on stage playing guitar. I could just imagine, especially with the demonic-y sound in Max Cavalera voice, I could just imagine them being in that movie, in that scene. That would be cool. Quentin, hook these boys up.
One movie I always think about two things I always think about when I was listening to this album. One, the movie, I don't know if you've seen it, there's that movie with Antonio Banderas, Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was a sequel to Desperado. But it has, and the second thing I think about is Danny Trejo. Who's
exactly.
Desperado. He was the main villain. But like you think of, the cliche movie scenes where every time they're in Mexico, the screen goes yellow. And it's always like in Mexico. That's what I think of when I listen to this album. And one thing I forgot to mention before now is every time I listen to this, I forget that this is only 8 songs. This feels like a double album worth of enormous production, enormous sound. And like every time the album finishes, I mean, some of the tracks are quite long, 8 minutes 50, 7 minutes 48, etc. But still, even considering that, it just feels way longer than it actually is, because they have so much depth in the sound. They have so much richness. They have so much of the Spanish Mexican culture leading through this album that you can't help but get sucked into that world that they've created for you. And then it's literally a magical case where once the album finishes, I kind of zoom back out into reality. Like I'll be sitting there with my headphones, and then I'll be like I'll look around, because it's like I was so invested in that world, and it literally felt like I was in Mexico watching like a heavy metal band, which I guess is what that will be if they change it. But there's obviously a few tracks I want to talk about later on, but like as a whole, there was just, to me, besides the weirdness of it's not really inconsistencies, but to me the randomness of the vocals and where not they were placed, and where they weren't placed. But besides that, nothing deviated me from this album. There was no point in the album where I felt off, or I felt bored, or I felt awkward. There was no awkward transitions. There was no outros to be desired. There was no weird intros. To me, it's just a perfect fusion of Spanish, Mexican, folk, and metal, which is exactly how Zach described it. And he was on the point, because it really is a perfect harmony, a perfect blend of the 3 sounds of metal, folk, and traditional cultural. It's an outstanding. It's so much to put in for an 8-track album.
Yeah, I mean, 8 tracks, 55 minutes. It's a surprising. When I saw 8 tracks, I was like, oh, this will probably be short. But then you've got some tracks are like 8 minutes, nearly 9 minutes long. Like Honor E Valor is like 8 minutes 50 seconds. So but you wouldn't even feel it. Like the songs just flow nicely, and there's I'm probably going to say this later on a lot, but there's a lot of like hypnotic almost. They do a lot of repetitive notes over, and it kind of like for bars and bars, and it kind of really just sucks you in, and it's very, well, not very, but slightly hypnotic, you know. But I must have a look into the guy who recorded this, because his name is Jesus Bravo, and it was in Brave Sound Studios. He done the mixing and mastering, and I think he recorded it too. The album was recorded at, no, it wasn't. He mixed and mastered it. So he's the guy I really want to look into, and just, you know, with the whole mixing element, I'm just interested to find out more about this guy. Plus he has a really cool name, Jesus Bravo. Like, I mean, you know, straight away he's like, he sounds like a legend. But the album, the label, I'd never heard of the label before. The label is Metal Inside / the BB666 Records. I think two labels might have merged there, but they're like a death metal doom label. They have a couple of bands like Funeral of Christ, Resurrect, Blasphemy, Gut Wrench. So you can hear by the other bands that they're hardcore death metal kind of bands. And these guys would be like an absolute left fielder in this mix. And but you can hear the elements of like pure death metal, especially when he's doing his vocals at full maximum ferociousness. Like, and the riffs, there's a lot of riffs that really kind of have that element. And there's, do you know what? Because the drums are mixed so low, I find it interesting even more so to listen to them, because I love listening to music intently, where I'm like really trying to pick things out. I like it to be almost difficult for me to hear what's going on, because it's like a rewarding thing at the end when I'm like, oh man, that was like, you know, the timpani, or that in this case, that was like, oh, that was like a maraca, and I was like, what type of maraca would it be? You know, or what kind of a nylon string would it be? So the drummer is absolutely immense. The technicality of the drumming, and like I say, it's real down in the mix, so he doesn't take the forefront. But if he was in any other band, his drums would be right out there, because his double kicks are absolutely ferocious. But yeah, so it's an interesting. I mean, the label is a Mexican label. They're a Mexican band. They write about Mexican music, and they really pour the whole emphasis of the ancestral, you know, what's it, Dia de la Muertes, you know, the Day of the Dead. So they really, really, you know, I think it's really honorable, and it's a mega cool concept. I just love it. But as far as the songs go, the very first track is like this lovely slow burner with the hypnotic kind of vibe. And then you just hear all this percussion, and you're just like, wow, like all this percussion just comes right at you, you know, and they're all just, you know, a lot of the time when you have three or more percussionists, or usually it's only two at a maximum, they're all playing different rhythms, and they're bouncing off each other. These boys just straight up hit the same rhythm and just have this huge gargantuan kind of sound. Like, and again, I'll talk about Max Cavalera, because it does remind me a little bit of some of the live stuff that Sepultura would have done back in the day, where they have Igor rocking the drums, and then the boys are just there hitting big toms and stuff, you know. So it just straight away made me think about them boys, which you can't go wrong when you think about Sepultura. Like, but the halfway point of this intro song has those alto soprano trumpets that I was talking about earlier on. And straight away, I'm just like, oh, nice. And then a blast beat comes in, and I'm just like, oh, man, what? How does this make any sense? And, you know, you talk about the mixing and stuff like that, but if somebody was throwing that you know, range of instruments at me, I'd probably have a canary. I'd probably run away. Like, it was quite a feat. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you could have like 100-piece orchestra, and everything would sit in nicely where it goes. These guys are throwing instruments and tracks at this guy that don't make sense together. They shouldn't make sense together. Like, the rhythm is it's an off time kind of rhythm a lot of the time, an offbeat, should I say, and it just doesn't make sense. Your brain is just like, what is going on with this rhythm, man? It's crazy, like. But yeah, it totally works because these boys are mega. Yeah, the hypnotic vibe, the Mexican sample talking voice, the lovely leads. It's just a recipe for awesomeness. Like, but I can't say enough about the visual, the costumes, the stuff that they wear, the masks. I'd love to actually go see them play live. I'd say they're absolutely deadly crack. Like, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think of, like, say, the second track, bro?
Second track. Well, I was actually going to save that towards the end.
Right. What about the third track, bro?
Third track. I was going to say no. Yeah, I wasn't. But the third track, again, as I was pointing to before, like, no matter how long the songs are, no matter how long the songs are, this album doesn't feel as long. It feels longer than it is, but not in a bad way. In a wow, I can't believe I only went through 8 tracks kind of way. And that song, Centauro del Norte, or track 3 as we should probably call it, it was amazing because for 8 minutes and 38 seconds, the rhythm and the solos, like the way they utilize every single instrument, it's just insane. It's like a river in my head. It's so soothing. Like there's, like I said this before, but there was no awkward moment. There was no weird transition. There was no part of it where I snapped out of my little dream world where I was like, oh wait, I noticed that. Oh shit, that was a bit off key, or there was no moment in that song where I broke my concentration. So, and for 8 minutes and 38 seconds, they did a killer job at keeping the listener engaged, keeping things fresh, exciting, and keeping things progressively moving up to a maximum, like as far as musical tension can get to, which I think is amazing. And I was thinking, it's a perfect question, I think, to ask you, but because, these guys focus on culture, they focus on one theme and their traditional culture. But I want to ask you, because obviously, as you said, you do Viking metal. How important to you, or should I say, how hard is it? Like, how much detail do you have to put in to make sure all your albums and your aesthetic and your costumes and everything you do revolves nicely around the theme? So how hard is it for you to maintain a Viking metal aesthetic through all your media and music?
Yeah, I mean, like, these guys, they've absolutely nailed the whole theme and concept of what they're going for. Like, you look at the artwork, the costumes, the titles, the albums, everything, absolutely everything. They throw a lot of like rant on their social media, a lot of random just historical things, and it's just absolutely amazing. It is difficult at the very beginning, but once you have it all set up and it's in place, it kind of becomes second nature, especially if you live it. Like for me, without sounding crazy cliche, like I live I live what I do in my music. It's not just like Slipknot, where they throw on the masks and then suddenly they're these nutters from Arkham Asylum or something, like, take the masks off and they're friendly, nice guys. Like, like with the belief and the faith and stuff that I have, the music and the whole style and everything, it's just marries itself and becomes essentially who you are as a person. So I can imagine these boys. I couldn't find any pictures of the guys without the costumes, so I'd be really interested to see what the guys are like. But I can imagine that they live and breathe this kind of stuff, like it's do you know what? It's too authentic, I think, for it to be a fake kind of just stage thing. I think because we can't hear we can hear them, but we can't understand the lyrics because they're in Spanish or Mexican Spanish. But the way they're being sung and even the sample vocals, it's they're being said with a lot of passion. Like right at the very end, actually, almost made me cry a little bit. There's right at the very end on the very last track. There's a man, like a voiceover of a man talking, like a sample, and he's almost crying when he's talking, and it must be some really, really deep song. And it's just a shame. I might go back and try and translate it or something later, but that's a Revoluciones. Probably said it completely wrong there, but yeah, it kind of shows the the sadness of probably what they're trying to portray in that song, even though the song has like a killer Papa Roach type guitar riff. Did you hear that riff? Like it's like right at it's the last song of the album. It just has this really cool kind of new metal type riff. I thought that was really interesting, and then there's like nylon strings over it and pan flutes and maracas, and then the sad man talking. So I'd say that's a fairly deep tune, But like I say, these boys, it's too real, I think, for these guys to be faking this concept. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, bro. It's easy if it's who you are, that kind of way. Like, but
True.
Yeah.
I never really think about that. But all right. So I think before we go to our final segment, I think we should do, as we call it in the industry, we should call any shout outs or sponsorships you want to do before we go to Devil's Advocate.
Yeah, well, I think it's coming into summertime here now, and I was up in the mountains yesterday with my harp, and I was just having the crack, playing the music to the sheep and the mountains and the sky, and it's just a beautiful thing. So if there's anybody out there that's looking to start playing an instrument this summer, there's one place you should go, and that's Cassidy's Guitars. I'm close with the man himself. He's designed absolutely beautiful instruments for me, and I don't know, I think they deserve a shout out. Simon Cassidy and everybody at Cassidy's Guitars, your one-stop shop for all your guitar needs. Yeah, that's me.
That's you. All right. So I think I'll start off with the obvious starting point. Metal Devastation Radio. They were pretty much the sponsors for this episode, as this is their Zach's affiliate album. As you guys would have heard, if you listen to this album, how it's amazing. We've said nothing but great things about it. And he has probably thousands of hours of more bands under his wing, So go check out Zach Moonshine and go contact him. And if you're a band who needs some support or needs that extra push that you've been looking for, and this can be accredited to my co-host who did the same thing, and from what I know has become pretty big thanks to it. He can attest to it. I'm sure this band, Aztlan, can attest to this. He has an eye for quality, an ear for quality, and you will never find a PR man. You'll never find a bigger workhorse of a PR man than Zach. So, that's why we love and respect him. He's a hustler in the underground industry, and when it's all said and done, he's going to be making waves that he didn't even know he made. So shout out to him. And finally, as always, we're going to talk about Gas Digital Network. And I think this is quite fitting considering recent events. But if you're someone who's not worried about taking a slap every now and then for some dark comedy, then come to Gas Digital Network, where I'm sure that won't happen. And there will be hundreds of hours of podcasts and material, completely uncensored, telling the jokes they want to say without any worry about censorship or worry about the pesky PG era. The two shows that I would recommend is Legion of Skanks, which I just finished watching, I think, the recent episode after work today. It was amazing. And Berg's Bass with Aaron Berg, my second favorite show on the network. It's pretty new, but he does skits, he does dark humor, he does everything in between. Amazing comic, amazing guy. And yeah, there's tons of other shows you guys can probably watch from. Yeah, the topics are endless of different kind of shows. You get a whole bunch of variety, and it's pretty cheap every month. So go to Gas Digital Network, subscribe, and there's always plenty of promo codes for you to use to get it cheaper per month. And yeah, enjoy your heart's content. And one last time, fuck the PG era.
Bro, you have me laughing about that one. Like, good man, Will Smith. No, we're Team Chris Rock here, aren't we, dude?
Team Rock.
Team
That's a
Rock.
Team Rock.
Team Rock all the way, man.
Quite fitting for us.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so the Devils, or should we say, the drummer of this band, Advocate. The Diablo Advocate.
Diablo the Advocate.
Yeah, we're doing the Spanish for you guys. Diablo.
Lad.
All right, so do you want to start or me?
You go for it, bro. You go for it.
All right. So, should I start with best or worst? I'll start with worst, just to peel the band-aid off, so to speak. So, funny enough, out of all the albums we've covered, even considering we've talked about my favorite band ever, Cradle of Fields, we've talked about a savage band like Nails, we've talked about Dimmu Borgir, and yet, despite all of this, I think this is by far the hardest Devil's Advocate I've had to play so far. And this is a band I never heard before until now, but I was racking my brain trying to find any reason to give any of these songs a bad thing. It was like, at this point, to me, it was almost impossible to say something bad about a song. And, you know, that's why it's Devil's Advocate. We don't enjoy doing it, but we have to. So I came to the natural conclusion of track 2, the Tria Maria Top. That was the song you wanted my opinion on, and I couldn't say. So, look, this is a pretty, at this point, I think it'll be clear to everyone that I'm nitpicking here, but we have to for the sake of this podcast. So the reason I'm putting this as the worst, even though every song, if I could, I would say they're all perfect, but I think track 2, it's not because of the length, it's one of the shorter ones. Is it the shortest? I think it is. Yeah, it's the shortest track on the album, and by a few seconds. And the reason why I put it there is because, and this is the most nitpicky reason ever, but I think compared to the whole album, that one song is the one song out of the 8 that is more death metal than it is balanced with the folk. And look, that is not really a bad thing, but it's the worst I could come up with. It was more death metal, and it was the one song that didn't flow as perfect as the rest, as far as the album goes. So that's my reason. Still, perfect song otherwise. Now, my favorite track. Now, I got to say this story because when I first listened to this album, I was walking my dog, and you know, because we have a forest outside our 10-minute walk from us, we have like a mini forest. So I take him there all the time, headphones on. I was all by myself, and this one song stuck out to me. I was getting chills. I was getting excited. I was almost in tears. Like, I haven't had a single song hit me the way this has in decades, I swear. And that was track number 4, Honor Why Valor. Now, I was listening to that, and everything about that song just blew my brains out. So, look, we have that. First of all, the whole song is just 8 minutes and 50 minutes of slow building, intense progression towards a climax. You can hear it like as the minutes go by, they add another sound, they add another instrument, they add another level. It gets higher and higher. And then once it gets to the 5-minute mark, you just forget about it. Once it's the 5-minute mark, they just start doing this combination of solos, theatrical, it sounds almost theatrical, cinematic, and then they add layers. So first they add the Spanish guitar, then the percussion, then this, then that, and it just builds up to the very last minute of this climax. And the whole time I was almost in tears. I was like, if I could define a masterpiece, this song would be that. It is, this album perfect, that one song, it will forever be in my head for how it blew me away. So to me, without a shadow of a doubt, track 4, and unfortunately because we have to choose one, track 2 is the worst.
That's yeah, man. Again, I'm 50-50 with you this week again, man. Yeah, so I'll make it short with the song that I least like, and that is track number 6, Attila del Sur, I think it's called. It's a really, there's a real nice offbeat in it, and lovely leads. You know, it's got that nice repetitive hypnotic vibe that they have going through all their songs. Usually I'm not a big fan of repetitiveness, overuse of repetitiveness, but with these guys I like it because it really, like, you kind of like get submerged in this hypnotic kind of trance almost, like it's crazy. But there's lovely melodies in this track, and don't get me wrong, I love it. I think it's brilliant. There's there's a lovely bridge. The only thing that catches me is, halfway through the song, the lead guitarist goes a little haywire with his notation. That's literally all it is, and that's just from a guitar player point of view. Like, realistically, you can't really say much bad about that's it, and that's the only criticism of the entire album, in my opinion, right? So to make a quick segue onto actually, you spoke about track 2, right? The thing I find is interesting that you picked that for your Devil Advocate is that there's this high pitched fry vocals at the start of that song that's very, very reminiscent of Danny Filth, which I was like, that's mad that you picked that particular song. But maybe I understand that it's like, it's the one song, and I think that was one of my favorite tracks because it locked in. But from your kind of the way you listen to an album, it's the song that stands out, that doesn't fit with the rest of them. And I always find that really interesting, the way you look at it that way. So yeah, no, I could almost be 100% on you this week, but yeah, I'm gonna go 50-50. Honor a Valor is track number 4, and that's, yeah, I agree. That's an absolutely amazing song. Like, I love the intro. I love the nylon string really Mexican sounding intro. It's beautiful. And then they've got this super groovy drums then that kick in with this, really unusual, well, not even unusual. It's actually my preference of snare, but it's unusual on this album. They use like a steel drum snare wound as tight as you can possibly go, and he's just hammering that, and it's lovely high up in the mix. And then there's just this lovely technical vibe off this song, with like these huge big vocals. The lead tone is very reminiscent of Santana as well. It's just beautiful, crisp lead sound. There's huge, amazing, hooky trumpets again, and it's just like, oh man, it's just gorgeous. It just fits so nicely together. It's the most even mix of all of the songs in the album, and it's 8 minutes and 50 seconds long, as you said. It's worth every second. Every song on this album is beautiful, constructed like something that I've never heard before. This one in particular, it just towards the end, then, like you were saying, it just goes into all these like insane layers of solos. It's like guitar solo, like lead stuff with the trumpets doing a lead, and then there's like the big chunky fat bass is doing a run, and then the double kicks are just flying through. But then there's this dual, they did it on a couple of tracks. There's like a dual guitar solo stuff with the nylon string and the electric, and it's just like this beautiful timbre of just, it's like magical. It's a really, really good song, with amazing hooks. I could listen to that one all day long, and Quentin Tarantino needs to use this in a movie. Do you hear me, Quentin? Yeah. I mean, like, I know he's going to be watching this, so he'll probably give the boys a shout next week. Like, but yeah, man, 100%. That is a killer track. So all in all, I'm a fan of these boys now. So happy days. Well done.
One thing I gotta say is, like, do you know how this must be fate? Like, on the same episode, we decide to we decide to honor Foo Fighters, Taylor, it's the same episode that the drummer's called Diablo.
Yeah, man.
How does that happen?
That's unreal, isn't it?
That's so to the drummer of Diablo. I'll try and actually I could probably get in contact with the band. I'll try. But
yeah,
you guys should be watching this, and when you do, amazing album. And yeah, Diablo, what a lucky time to be. Just a cool coincidence that happens.
Yeah, man.
So yeah.